Peachy Peach is the best damned colour around. Look at that beauty. Granted, it's not going to be able to fight crime, do your weekly shop or do your tax returns, but it will help you paint lots of figures fast and help you identify the correct colour of tea. I'm Peachy, and this is Peachy Tips. Now, at the time of filming, Colourforge are running a Kickstarter showcasing a signature series which involves 8 content creators. I'm honoured to be among these 8 amazing folks, all with our own signature colour, mine being Peachy Peach. Now, there's a vast array of different colours, from bright tones all the way to nice neutral colours like myself, as like, say, Pete the Wargamer's Dead Animal Bits. But why make a video about this, Peachy? You've done like a little sort of intro about it and you did a teaser. Well, with this video, I want to go a bit more into my spray, but also the other sprays in general, and why they're quite useful paints or spray or undercoats, primers, what you want to call them. It would be remiss of me not to explain a bit more about Peachy Peach, as well as how you can use it. Now, I was approached a little while back and they're like, we'd like to do a signature series with you. And as we were talking, it made sense to play on the name Peachy, you know, that's my name, and do a colour that's like it. Now, not just randomly picking out like, oh, let's just do a peach because it'd be funny. I wanted to pick a colour that's actually quite usable and practical. And as an army painter and someone that paints lots of stuff, whether that's warbands, lots of warbands, or just vast collections, there isn't many flesh sprays out there. And when I say flesh sprays, yes, I'm aware there are other tones of flesh, but like a pinky sort of peachy flesh spray. So it made sense to get my name labelled on that and do a spray on it. But it would be remiss of me not to do any kind of like painting or any kind of content around that. So that's what we're going to do in this video. Have a bit of a chat about why the paints are cool, how they all work together quite well, and also just throw in a paint guide where I'll show you how I use this practically in painting fleshes and stuff. Like I said, if you've seen the trailer, you would have seen elements of this, but we're going to cover it in a little bit more detail. Now, there's 8 colours to pick from in the signature series. I'm mostly going to be focusing on my flesh and a couple of others in this video, but I'm just going to quickly go over what the colours are in case you don't know. So we have Peachy Peach, which is my colour, nice flesh tone. Then we've got Dead Animal Bits, which is a Rackar flesh equivalent, also really good for different tones of flesh. Then you've got Ashen Grey from Tabletop Tactics, a nice cold, pale grey kind of colour, which is perfect for a lot of things like tau, buildings as well, if you want to do buildings. Then you've got Siege Armour from Siege Studios, which is a beautiful Rune Lord brass equivalent, seeing as that's no longer available. Then you've got some really cool Space Marine colours, like Mikey from Hellstorm Wargaming's Reliquary Red. You've also got Chapter Master Valric's Valrak Yellow as well. Perfect for Imperial Fists, and anything else that's yellow adjacent. Then you've got some really bright colours, like Midwinter Ice, which is great if you're doing like, I don't know, Emperor Spears maybe, and some bright tones, some bright tanks, or just some weird sort of like alien vehicles and weaponry. And then of course Rogue Hobbies has gone classic with a bright vivid pink, which is Rogue Pink, which is also really useful, which I'll come to in a bit, about doing different types of yellow as well. Now I'm just going to pick out a couple of examples of useful ways of using some of the other colours. So if I pick like Mikey's, for instance, his Reliquary Red, it's really good if you spray a model red, whilst it's still wet, give it a dust of the Peachy Peach, and it's really good for things like demon skin, maybe dragons even, like angry looking beastmen, anything cornate basically. But with that, whilst it's still wet and giving that little dust over the top, it helps blend it together, kind of mottled a bit as well, because you get like the bit of a spurt from the actual spray. So it gives you lots of like pixeliness to the skin, which actually when it's still wet and it's like just slowly drying, gives a nice bit of texture to the skin without actually adding texture to the model. So the model you've seen right now is just some weird Chaos Cultists, some very mutated looking Chaos Cultists. Now there's a lot of other colours on this, a lot of other textures, but I often go with the majority of the colour, so it made sense to spray it red, do that dust in a Peachy Peach, and then I can block out all those other colours. But one thing I was sure to do was give it a bit of a dry brush of a fleshy tone as a highlight, and then if I need to knock back, I could get some like red contrast or some red speed paints, thin them down, knock it back a little bit, and then I can pick out all those other colours if I needed to. And you know, it's good if you doing one, it doesn't make much sense, but if you're doing like 20 or 30, it's a really speedy way of getting those done. Now I've also done these Roman fellas here. These are from Modifius. They are the Cohorts of Cthulhu tactics game. They're really cool, and you've got like some weird mutated ones called Servitors. They have all these tentacles coming out of it. I followed the Mikey effect on these, but also I sprayed my own guys with a flesh spray because it was a lot quicker. So that's a really cool way of doing like demon skin and stuff like that. So Mikey's red mixed with flesh looks really nice. Now another thing I was thinking about is yellows. Now we've got Valrak's yellow, perfect. You can just spray things yellow, you're sorted. You've got sunset yellow as well, so you've got a choice of yellows. You've got mustardy yellow, a nice bright sort of imperial fish yellow. But there's another way of doing yellows, and it's a really nice way I've seen Goobertown do and lots of other people do, is they start with a pink. They spray pink and then they sort of zenithal white over the top of it. I tend to use rattle cans because they're a cheaper. I say cheaper, in the long run it might be cheaper to buy a compressor and an airbrush, but from a time point of view, time is important to me. And a rattle can is a faster way of getting those colours blocked on a model. I can even do like dusting from a couple of different rattle cans, so get the zenithals there. Whereas the cleaning process and just a lot of faff for me with airbrushes slows me down. So that's why I tend to use rattle cans a lot for a lot of the effects. You can use airbrushes, there's nothing wrong with that, but I just prefer using rattle cans. So doing the orangey kind of yellow effects are really good because you can start with Rogue Hobby's pink, give a dusting of white, and then of course you can then start applying all those yellow tones over the top of it. And what that'll give you in those recesses is it gives you a really nice orangey effect. So that pink being stained by, whether you use like a contrast or a speed paint or an ink, whatever yellow you choose to use, what it will do is where those pink areas are, it will turn it into a nice orangey kind of tone, which then actually shades your model. So although you've dusted it from angles with white, you're kind of like, well, there's a lot more white here than pink now. A lot of that pink is in the recesses, and it's now turned into an orangey tone, which is giving you some definition on top of that whitey yellowy effect that you're getting. But I also thought, could that work with Peachy Peach if I use Peachy Peach as the overall undercoat and then give that a dusting of white and then just do the same process I'd do with the one I did on the Rogue Pink. And it's a bit more subtle, it's a bit brownier than orange, but it's another way of working it. So if you wanted a different sort of finish to your yellows, like I said, you've got Varax, you've got Sunset Yellow, but you can do the way where you use Rogue Hobby's Pink, or you can use Peachy Peach. So you've got like 4 different ways of approaching yellows just from Colourforge alone. Obviously you need white spray here, so that's 2 sprays granted, but so you can opt for 1 spray, or you can opt for like a nice 2-tone effect, so there's more shade and more depth added to it. But as you can see, the end result looks quite nice. So even though I've done like this pink or flesh kind of tone, dusted it with white, covered them in like a yellowy tone, once you've got other colours blocked on there, they look quite cool. And yeah, obviously I like to chip things up, I like to add other colours, but they're quite striking. It has a nice striking effect. I would say still that the Rogue Pink adds more definition than the Peachy Peach does when you're doing this yellow effect, but I probably went a bit too overboard with the white spray on the Peachy Peach one, so it probably lost a little bit of that. If I was to give myself a little bit of feedback, was maybe not go so excessive on the white undercoat on that one Peach. I think that was a bit much, but as end results go, really nice. Now, I also wanted to paint the model pink using Rogue Hobby's pink as well. So I thought, you know what, let's give it a go. Let's just go for something a bit pink. So I've got these models, they're from Crooked Dice, really, really nice. They're like henchwomen, and you get different heads. I went for the little side cap. I'm going to call them Rogue Squaddies from Rogue Hobbies. So they're going to be just like a new faction for Stargrave or something like that. So what I did was I sprayed them pink. Now, a lot of these sprays that exist have some colour, some paint colour that's, you know, matches them. So a lot of Colourforge sprays match most of the Citadel base paints. So if you take Pete the Wargamer's Dead Animal Bits, that's Rakoff Flesh. You take mine, it's Cadian Flesh Tone. So with Louise's colour, it's a bit more vivid and bright. There are some colour matches to it. So if you looked at Citadel, you've got Empress Children, which I think is close, but not quite close. There's Vallejo Pink, but I would say Impish Rouge, that's it. Rogue and Rouge. Oh, it's just that G and U, getting the wrong way round. It's closer. I'd say it's much closer, almost identically close. So if you are trying to get a match with Rogue Pink, I would say Impish Rouge is the correct one. And that's what I used on this model here. And I'm not doing a paint guide on it, I'm just showing like a cool end result. That is such a striking, vivid pink, and it'd be rude not to just paint something pink. And I think I might do a full squad of these and add them to my Stargrave games, because they'll look mega as just like a load of ladies in pink rocking on the battlefield, shooting their machine guns at aliens. Why not? So I'm going to do a quick paint guide on He-Man. I'm also going to throw in some other bits in there, because we all know He-Man's skin is the correct colour for cups of tea. So Peachy Peach is a great guide for that. But the great thing about this spray as well is you can go either way of it. So you can go lighter for lighter tones, or you can go darker for darker tones. And I'm going to cover that in this paint guide now. So first up, we're getting a couple of coats of Peachy Peach over the model that you're going to be painting. I often do one coat and then just leave it to dry and just do another coat, just so I don't clog up the detail too much. So first up is to do some dry brushing. Look at that dry brush board, isn't it beautiful? So what I'm going to do is get some of that paint on my bristles, rub it off as much as I can, still leaving traces on said bristles. And I'm just going to rub all over the model. Now, this does two things. First, it's going to highlight that skin, but also things like the furs and stuff and straps. It's really good for giving that a bit of a pre-highlight as well. Now, if you don't have Peachy Peach spray or you can't get hold of it, if you want to follow this guide, all you need to do is spray it like a light colour, like white or light grey, and then just base coat it with a flesh tone. And then that kind of gets up to the point you need to, and then start dry brushing. Again, use a smaller brush if you need to get in those nooks and crannies. But that first highlight done, we're now going to move on to doing a lighter dry brush. So I'm using a lighter skin tone here. This is Dorado skin. Any kind of like bony flesh tone will do. And all I'm going to do is flick that over. This is going to pick out the extremities and then some of the like larger, smoother areas. It's great for all the furs and straps as well. So work your way around. Again, if you need to, use a smaller brush for all those deeper nooks and crannies. With the skin done, what I'm now going to do is move on to using some speed paints here to pick out all those other areas. Now, because I've got that pre-highlight done, I'm just going to get some hardened leather, apply that over the furs, and then I'm going to do it over things like the boots as well. For a bit of variety, you can always do different tones of browns and mix it up, depending on like if you're doing Dark Oath Savages or whatever. For He-Man, I'm just keeping it to one. I changed my mind on the belt, so I decided to pick that all brown as well. I did splodge a little bit here and there, that's fine. So you can just get a brush that's kind of like dry, just wipe off any of the excess if you need to. You can always go back over some of those other flesh tones that you've dry brushed. Then it's picking out any silver details. He-Man's got like this obviously big chest plate. Initially I couldn't remember if his straps were silver, but after looking at some pictures, yes they are. So just gonna pick those out silver. Again, you know, depending on which models you're doing, this could be different details like chainmail, it could be like shoulder pauldrons. Obviously I'm using He-Man here as my canvas, but it's just barbarians in general this is useful for. Again, just work your way around. In some places you might need to do a second coat because some of that peachy skin might flow through. Then it's picking out any gold details, so I'm just going to do this all on his belt. Then you're thinking, but you painted that gold peach and you did it brown. It was just more for shadows and details really than it being the wrong colour. And same for his vambrace as well, or bracer. Then I'm just going to pick out his hair with a colour called Baron June, which sounds probably like some kind of evil baddie from some 80s cartoon, which is great, but whatever hair colour works for you. Then it's moving on to the red, and for this I'm going to be using Dragon Red and just picking out that cross. Over everything that's not skin, so this is literally everything that's not skin, I'm just going to get some strong tone, I'm just going to coat that all over. Again, I'm going to be super neat when I get around to those skin areas, but because it's a wash, I can always get a brush that's dry and soak off any excess that may have got onto the skin. I'm not going to stress too much about that. In some places it acts as a nice border between like one texture to the next. Always use a smaller brush or a larger brush depending on the details you're doing. But yeah, work your way around. And obviously watch out for pooling or any leaking, because sometimes wash be like that. Also decided to do it on his hair, and you noticed there was a bit of a dribble there to quickly catch it. For a bit more depth in the recesses, or a bit more warmth, I'm just using Peachy Flesh here. And it's got the name Peachy in it. Again, that's probably why I'm doing it, because it's got my name in it. But yeah, work your way around, picking out all those sections. Gives him that kind of like tanned He-Man kind of look, I guess. And then for the base, again, this is like a really simple guide. I just decided to use some Ghillie Dew and just apply that to the actual base itself. I wasn't going to dry brush it, I wasn't going to highlight it, I'm going to let the Peachy Peach do all the hard work for me. And there we are, He-Man is done, and by the power of Grayskull, doesn't he look great? And again, he's just mostly base coated with a little bit of dry brushing. So there we are, that's He-Man done. Really chuffed with the results. Again, the focus really is the skin, but using that skin dry brush all over helps with things like the fur and the straps and stuff as well, so it's a winner. Now, I recently got hold of Gangs of Rome. So it's a new game by Futsal Miniatures. Well, I say quite newish. It was probably available at Salute. But the great thing about this, I reached out and they reached out to me because I've been looking at doing other games, but I wanted some more like stuff with lots of skin exposed for this video. And you get like the citizens of Rome in this, which are basically like, you know, gladiators and citizens. So I'm going to do a couple of those now. I've got 3, and what I want to do with this is show you using the same sort of like undercoat and dry brushes, but using different washes to get different skin tones. That's the purpose of this now. It's like, it's not just about what can Peachy Peach do for your skin in general, but how you can then take it if you do like this type of wash or a slightly darker wash or more of an olive skin kind of wash or whatever. So I'm going to start off with a bald-headed guy who looks a little bit like me in red nappies. So yeah, let's crack on and look at some Romans and the different ways of painting skin on them. So again, very much like how I did the He-Man. So I'm going to start off with Peachy Peach, do some dry brushes using the same colours before. I'm just going to stick them on the screen, even though it's the same colours, just so you know it's there if you want to skip to this guide. I'm going to do it over all the cloth as well, because I want to give that a bit of a highlight as well, and I'm just using the flesh tones to do that for me. Then I'm going to move on to a lighter tone. It's just me in a nappy. That's what that is. Me in a nappy. There's an image you didn't need. And without being super neat, I'm just going to coat the entire model in Peachy Peach because I like that colour. Now for a different skin tone, I'm going to get something here called Ochre Clay. So if I wanted more of an olive tone, again, I started neat and I thought, no, just do it all over, it's easier. So this is going to go for more like an olive skin tone you probably expect from like Greeks and Romans. It's got a bit more of a greeniness to it. Or if you want your skin a bit more darker or a bit more tanned, you can use something like warrior skin. Now, depending on how dark you want it to be, you could do one coat of warrior skin, or you could build up to multiple coats. So this is the first coat of a second coat being applied. Again, just work your way around. I'm only concentrating this now on the actual skin, not the robes, because I don't want those robes to get too dark, because I want them ready for red when I start applying the red. So again, just work your way around on all the skin bits. And again, if you feel like you want to, you always do another coat to make it even darker. And that's the key here, is you have control now, because you've got that warm flesh tone, you've got control of the finish. And also, just quickly chucking in there, I'm going to apply some red over those robes. This is a speed paint, because when that dries, that'll pull away from the edges, and that peach tone underneath with the dry brushes will highlight it and look really nice. In fact, it's the perfect colour, I'd say, for like nice rich reds. And then there's all three together, and as you can see, just by using the same base coat with the same dry brush, just by using different shades, you can get a variety of finishes. And again, you know, you can have a bit of a play at home with what that looks like and how many shades you want to use. Now, this is the first time me painting any of these Romans, these citizens of Rome. I really enjoyed painting them, actually, and the key thing I wanted to get from this was using that spray undercoat, dry brushing up, and then just doing, obviously, different skin tones over it, but also how it would work with things like the cloth, so using the red, and how it's kind of, you've got that pre-highlight going on, so you don't actually have to do much with the red. None of these had any highlights added to them, they've just been based up, and this is the final result. So it is base coats, bit of a dry brush, some speed paints and some shades, and that's kind of it. So you can get some nice looking finishes just by a little bit of strategic dry brushing and speed paints. And you could probably get a small warband of these guys done in an evening if you used Peachy Peach to its fullest potential. But yeah, so really at the end of the day, the purpose of this video is to show you what you can do with Peachy Peach, but also, you know, mixing it with other colours as well, getting those two-tone effects. I mean, I will look more at using this for scenery, because I've heard a lot of folks saying they're going to use this for terracotta buildings. You could probably do terracotta sort of stormcast as well. I've seen a lot of people like go down the concept armies where they do like stonecast, or they do like stormcast that are all like black with like glowing eyes. So you could do almost like a terracotta army version of them as well. Or if you've got terracotta like constructs and things for your fantasy games. It's really good for Roman building roofs as well. Now, I've not done any roofs yet. There's a lot of Sarissa Precision Roman buildings. I mean, the one here in Gangs of Rome has no terracotta roof tiles, but there are plenty that do. And if you're doing like any kind of Mediterranean buildings, you've got roofs, I'd say Peachy Peach is a really good shout for that. And like I did in my little teaser trailer, I did a long-range desert group vehicle as well. So you can see here, I've got one of the vehicles there. That was just purely sprayed using Peachy Peach and then dry brushed up with that barbarian flesh and that Dorado skin. But I love this colour, and it's not because it's got my name on it. I mean, yeah, some people are like, yeah, you're only saying that because it's got your name on it. Yes, I'm part of a signature series with an amazing spray company. I'm probably going to get some kickback from the cans that are sprayed, granted, but I've always been after a good spray colour, a good flesh spray colour, and I don't need to search anymore, and I'm really chuffed that it's got my name on it as well. So I'm really sort of hyped, not only about the fact that I've got a spray, hey, I've got a spray, it's amazing, but it's a really useful spray I've been after for a long time, just to speed up my painting. And I hope you guys will find the use for it as well. There is a lot of things I've still got to try out with it. I mean, I've not even touched on, like, you could do Geonosian droids, battle droids with this. You could do like battle tanks with it as well. There's so many different things you can use this for, and I'm just scratching the surface now. I imagine later on down the line, I'll probably do some like desert-related Frostgrave, Shadowgrave? That's definitely not a game. Rangers of Shadow Deep, or other like, dystopian-based stuff where only even the Gangs of Rome, I'll do more terracotta buildings. I will have more sandy-based things. So I foresee me using this spray a lot, and I'll probably have to get a few cans of it. But yeah, at the moment, just scratching the surface of what it can be used for. Really good for getting like horde armies of like barbarians or beastmen or Skaven done. But in general, just a good, useful spray. Now, there's one sort of thing to throw out there that is some of the sprays you will need to do a couple more coats in comparison to like Peachy Peach or like the browns or the blacks or like the military greens or whatever. Like Mikey's Red, Reliquary Red. I call it Mikey's Red because it's got his name on it. But Reliquary Red was one coat, it's fine. And Peachy Peach, one coat. I imagine a few of the others will be the same. But bright colours, probably like Valrak Yellow and Rogue Pink, you will need to do a couple of coats. So do a burst. Don't sit there for ages going over the model because it will clog up the detail. Give it a bit of a burst. Let it dry it does say let dry for 24 hours. Do follow the instructions if you want to. I let it dry for about 10-15 minutes. Came back, did another coat, let it dry for about 10-15 minutes and did a third coat. So actually over 3 coats, I got a nice vivid pink from Rogue Pink. But yeah, so do bear that in mind. Certain colours you'll need to do a couple more coats with. Now, I know a few of you, or a lot of you, will probably be shouting at the screen going, yeah, but I'm from the States or Australia or Europe. This is only available in the UK. Yeah, I understand. Completely sympathise with you. I'd love you guys to get a hold of this as well because they're really, really good paints. In general, colour forged sprays are really good sprays. It's something they're looking into. I'm not a businessman when it comes to making spray cans, but I hear it's a bit of a nightmare. So I guess give it time and then they will become available elsewhere at some point, fingers crossed. But I have no control over that. So if you are getting your angry comments in the comments, I can't do much about that. But yes, as always, thank you to these beautiful people, my Patreon supporters. You guys are amazing. This is just a quick, weird little video about me using the spray, but going more in depth because I did a little teaser. I know that. But I just wanted to do something about it because it's a really cool colour. And I want to talk about it because it's got my name on it. I'm excited about it. I've got my name on a spray can. I never thought I'd get that, especially a colour that I've always wanted in spray form. It's like the stars have aligned. I'm so chuffed with this. But yes, Peachy Peach is great for paint and skin. It's also great for making tea. Not obviously spraying it to make tea. You use it to match tea. Don't spray it into your tea mugs. I've seen some comments about that. Don't. That'll be a terrible idea. I don't recommend that. Right, bye.